Happy Friday, everybody. Happy first Friday in August. And hopefully you've had success this summer. You've had some time to relax a little bit this summer and maybe not do as much reading as you'd like. So I took care of that on this one for us. Simon Sinek is someone who, as I recall, a couple of years ago was supposed to speak at family reunion at Keller Williams, and then something changed in his schedule, and it was just, so sad that he couldn't make it. Great speaker. He has a number of TED Talks and talks on YouTube that are really worth listening to when you're in your car, as we all are. This book was really an evolution of his first book with that's a New York Times bestseller, Start With Why. And I think we're somewhat all familiar with the why, the one thing, the topic of what are we doing and why are we doing it? You know, let's drill it down. And then from that, what he put together in this book is, well, now that we kind of know what our whys are, how are we going to achieve them? And how are we going to achieve them success through people? Because as he notes a number of times, we have evolved as a species to be successful through groups and through people more than as an individual. So I found the book really fascinating. There's parts that I'll highlight in my presentation here that might just be a little bit too quirky or nerdy, but I really found the biology section of the book to be my biggest aha. So he spent some time with the Marine Corps and was fascinated by the fact that junior officers ate before the leadership, and he wasn't used to seeing something like that. And basically, as he spent more time with Marine Corps members, he came to learn that through the Marine Corps, as an example, the true price of leadership is putting other people before yourself. So that is really the premise of what motivated him to write the book and everything else that came from that. Throughout the book, he talks about the, unfortunately, you know, the systems that organizations have adopted over time have really not aligned with our natural biological inclinations, which is odd to him. So some of those examples will come through. So let's get clipping on this. Can everybody see my screen, by the way? Are we good with that? Okay. Yeah, thanks. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. So, you know, after, as I said, you know, we find out what is our why. You know, we sit and we're comfortable with what our why is. How can we be successful through others and engage people so that we achieve our why, that while maybe simultaneously folks are also achieving theirs? I pointed out a couple of things here that he's very adamant, Sinek, this is, that true leaders need more than professional competence. Real leaders truly care about their people, and that's where success happens. So I was drawn to the title when asked, would I lead a reverse book club this summer, simply because I think of myself as somewhat of a servant leader, or at least I aspire to be. And it's a little odd because in my professional life, I am a realtor, and I'm certainly proud to be one and have success, but I'm not on a team. I'm not leading a team. I'm not running a Fortune 500 company. But I took some time to think about, well, what are the leadership roles that I have, that I live in? And as we go through a couple of these slides, I want everybody to kind of think for a minute and maybe scribble down on a piece of paper, how am I a leader? What are the roles that I am a leader in? And how might some of this information relate to that and my real life? I hope you find value in that. So, you know, for example, I'm a leader in my real estate work and in my family, of course, and I have the pleasure of being a grandmother as well as a mom and a sister and a daughter. I'm a citizen in my community. I feel very inspired to, you know, participate in our KW culture when we can. I think that's an important part of what Cynic also shares in the book too. So I don't know if anybody wants to chime in or say anything about how they view themselves as a leader or what maybe they feel they'd like to aspire to be. You can share if you'd like, or we can keep going.
Jane, I like that you mentioned that you're a leader in your family. I think we overlook that a lot in life, that as salespeople, we have a tendency to have very big personalities. And while our clients and our, you know, coworkers and the people that work for and with us might appreciate our big personalities, but, you know, sometimes in the family, you have to understand that, you know, you're a leader there, and it's important to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. And don't we all know it in our work, evenings, weekends, time when most other people in our family have free, we don't, right? So how do we balance all of that and still hold a leadership role and value? That's great. Thank you, Allison. I can always count on you to share, so please do. And you too, Art, thanks. So the book opens with a story that maybe some of us have heard, maybe Mike has even mentioned it. In 2002, there was a US fighter pilot flying over Afghanistan, and his call name was Johnny Bravo. And what was happening is there was messages saying from the ground, 22, I want to say they were even Marines, soldiers, military men of the United States, men and women, were on the ground in this gully, and contact made, contact made. So Johnny Bravo and his wing, I'm thinking of Top Gun, right? His associate fighter plane, realized this was going on right underneath them. And the buddy on the right decided not to go down, but Johnny Bravo went down through this canyon and assessed what was going on and started to take out some of the enemy forces. And then he looped back around and he went down again, and he looped back around and he went down again. This is the story that Simon opens with. And then he went back down again, and he had no more ammunition. So then he enlisted the help of the fella in the pilot in the plane next to him. They went down together. So the other guy, you know, 3 feet apart in their wings, went down again. And all 22 of those soldiers on the ground lived. So when asked about that during an interview, you know, the simple answer is, well, they would have done it for me. So he lived on, of course, probably received a lot of recognition. But it really is an interesting metaphor, because here they were flying above the clouds, and he describes the sky is blue, it's a lovely day, and then they get these call messages. And isn't that interesting about something like the hierarchy of an organizational chart? The people at the top are floating around and life seems pretty darn good up there, and maybe they earn a lot of money and they receive incentives and bonuses. It's down lower where the grind is happening and where you really need to care about the people at various levels. So once again, underscored that story with, you know, the true price of being a leader is putting the needs of someone else before your own. And sometimes that's easy, and sometimes that's really hard. I mean, they risk their lives. So in the book, he came to realize that the words like I, me, and why is no longer used in a strong leader's vocabulary. Through his interviews with various Marine Corps leaders, CEOs, it's replaced with we and together and us. So when a group is cohesive, they stay together and they trust each other, and they can find success. And I think we've all heard the acronym TEAM, you know, together each achieves more. This was fascinating to me, and it was a theme that carried from chapter 3 throughout the whole book. Create your circle of safety. So let me do that. So in this, and I think I'll read it, it's a short paragraph. There is a fable, and maybe some of you have heard it. It really explains a basic anthropological view of the need for survival. And it's an Aesop fable, and it's called The Circle of Safety. A lion used to prowl about a field which 4 oxen used to dwell. Many a time he tried to attack them, but when he came near, they turned their tails together so that whichever way he approached, he was then met by the horns of one of them. At last, however, they fell a-quarreling, and each went off to pursue alone in a separate corner of the field. The lion attacked them one by one and soon made an end to all 4. So that is something that Sinek uses throughout the whole book, the circle of safety concept, and how that's essential for leaders to understand, embrace, and through that, leaders need to be responsible to look out for everyone, and they need to be the gatekeeper for who comes in the circle, as well as who stays within the circle, and manage the layers of the circle, so that maybe you'll start with one circle of safety. And of course, you can't manage everybody if you've got a real big organization, that you're entrusting other people to embrace the same kind of philosophy, to take care of people, to know people within your circle. And that's a positive trickle out effect. Everyone wants to feel safe. And that's something, again, that he repeats throughout the book, that when a person doesn't feel safe, it really negatively affects not only their health, which he talks about, their behavior, their productivity, their trust, or lack thereof. Trust. So, as I mentioned a minute there, when we feel safe in a circle, with friends, with colleagues, with our associate realtors in the office, our vendors, our lenders, our inspectors, bringing it home to our industry, we are successful. We're able to be productive. And we can't tell people to trust us. You need to trust me. Well, that doesn't really fly, right? It's something that's organic. It's something that comes naturally, or it doesn't. We can't demand people to be creative thinkers and think outside the box, or simply cooperate with us. Don't we know that as realtors? I've got an example I won't even share right now, that my sellers went way out on a limb and the buyer was rough. So you can't force people to cooperate. But when the circle of safety is strong, we feel safe. We feel that we can share ideas, that we can collaborate, that maybe my idea is a bad one, but it's worth putting out there. And we share the stresses, successes, and failures. And so the byproducts of having that circle of safety with trust is peace of mind, open communication, a sense of belonging, which leads to collaboration and innovation.
Can I mention something, Jane?
Sure, go for it, Art.
So when I used to teach, I would, one thing about me teaching, I would work with the younger kids because they were kind of nicer and easier to work with. So there was something like in a preschool class or kindergarten class, a little exercise that the kids would put a kid literally like in a circle, well, not permanent in a circle, but you can visualize it being in a circle, and the other kids around would always have to say something nice about the child in the circle. So I thought that was that was good to help the child with the self-esteem. And just everyone would say something nice, like, I like your shoes, I like your hair, I like, you're a nice person. So all of them will go around and will say something nice about one another, and it will help the culture of the classroom, the environment, the school, and help them with all of their self-esteem.
Wow, what an awesome example, that even from a young age, that circle metaphor, that sharing good ideas, creating that sense of safety and openness to share and have trust. That's awesome. Art, thanks for that. That nails it. That's that whole concept that he's talking about. And then of course, when it's absent, we all know how we feel. If we've been in a classroom or an office or a former position at work or on a team, sports team, and you just didn't feel that. I can speak for myself. I'm not effective. I tighten up and I second guess everything I might be thinking, and then I don't speak, and I carry questions or burdens or things with me. I create my own internal stress because I don't have that circle of safety concept moving in. He pointed out stress and anxiety stem less from the work, but more from weak leadership and management. The other thing that was referenced a few times is in that second paragraph there, that he reflects that the number of 150 people tend to be kind of a mile marker on about how many people you can really know and trust. It's just somehow biologically ingrained in us at one time. So throughout the book, he talks about that's okay. He used an example of an organization that set up really kind of pods of 150 people, another pod, 150 people, to have lots of these different pods of 150 people, but they all were very productive doing the same type of work and effective because they had that bond. So this is the part that really resonated with me. Well, a lot of it did, but this was my biggest aha. And it's the section he talked about the biology and the chemicals within us naturally that either are, there's high levels or moderate or low. And I've come to realize, I am data driven, as we tend to be, we need to be in our work. And there's science behind a lot of basically everything that happens in the world, but in particular, biologically, what we have within our system that helps us be an effective leader or not. And as I read through this section of the book, I thought a lot about obviously myself, but then I thought about other people and people in my family, people on the news, people in various leadership roles, and where I would assess their levels of these chemicals are. So the first one is E. E stands for endorphins. And I think we've all heard of endorphins before. It's referred to as kind of the runner's high, right? You go, you feel great. You've had a good walk or a good run, and you've had some nice exercise, and that builds in us. And historically, this evolved in our species to mask pain and for survival. So it builds us, for the capacity to be the hunter and gatherer. And it is one of the selfish chemicals that Sinek has labeled. There's 2 selfish and 2 selfless, but we need it. If we don't have endorphins in us, then our ability to survive is really negatively impacted. One of the things he pointed out is endorphins motivate us for food and living and sleep, and is enhanced through exercise, but also laughter. And a quote in the book from Stephen Colbert is, you know, one cannot laugh and be afraid at the same time. And I just liked hearing that. It just, sometimes I don't get out to do all my exercise, but if I can laugh a little bit in the day, I've got the endorphins going. So the next selfish chemical that is talked about is dopamine, and it is the incentive for progress. So as realtors, I think we can all relate to, gosh, we got the listing agreement signed, and wow, we worked through the ROC, we're good, we're smooth sailing to closing. Oh, I've got my to-do list, I'm checking things off. It helps us form our goals and is enhanced when we reach them off. You know, we cross them off, like, oh my gosh, I did something this morning that's been weighing on me, and I felt great and I laughed. It was like, okay, so there was a little hit of dopamine. I got that done. We need to check those boxes, and it is a selfish chemical for our survival. So the endorphins and the dopamine work together to keep us moving forward for progress. The bigger the goal, the more effort it requires, and the more dopamine that our system produces. So it's kind of a nice positive spiral. He mentions a lot about goals need to be tangible. And there's a reason vision statements are vision statements. We need to see it. And the flip side of too much dopamine, which I think we can relate to, we get attached to some addictions. Some of us, obviously, hopefully none of us in drugs or alcohol, but maybe units sold and volume sold, and I have to do more, and I want to reach that level of recognition. And, you know, that's all goal-oriented and dopamine-driven. Not necessarily a bad thing, unless it's hurting your health, the productivity of your organization. Dopamine and endorphins keep us going. So then the selfless chemicals combine with the first two, serotonin. He refers to this as the leadership chemical. It's a social chemical. It's that feeling of pride when we think somebody likes us or respects us. And, you know, here we are in our industry. People do business that they know, like, and trust, right? We're social. Our businesses grow through referrals because we have made some kind of agency and relationship with people to be successful. The more serotonin we have, the more confidence we have. You know, I use the phrase, we're comfortable in our own skin. And we can do anything. We want the approval of people in our circle, in our tribe. And it really plays a part in the relationships as simple as parent-child, a coach and a player, a teacher and a student, CEO and a staff member, a leader, a follower, the alpha, and somebody in the pack. And serotonin also helps us form these feelings that we really don't want to let people down. And I live with that a lot, maybe sometimes too much. The more we give of ourselves and we see other people succeed, the greater our value is to the group, the more respect they offer us, the more pride, and the more serotonin that our bodies make. So it's the higher the status we receive in the book and in the group, the more incentive we have to do more. And it really is kind of a lovely upward spiral. In that kind of system, those that create this feeling and this serotonin and it's shared are likely considered to be leaders and alpha in the group. The other selfless chemical is oxytocin, and it is the chemical of love. Cynic refers to this as it's a chemical for friendship, love, or deep trust. And it's really the feeling we have when at the end of a long week, we can sit down on Friday night with a friend and have dinner or have a cocktail or be with our family on Saturday for dinner. It comes also when we do nice things for people, and it is contagious. Cynic used one example where he was in New York City and there was a fellow walking near him with a backpack on. The backpack flew open. The papers in that fellow's pack went all over the street, and Cynic was right there. He picked them up, he handed them to the fellow and said, "Hey, these just came out of your bag. You might want to zip it up." "Oh, great, thank you." So there was a little boost of oxytocin there that he experienced, and the fellow that received the good favor did too. Go down 2 more blocks, somebody stopped Cynic and said, "Hey, I saw what you did back there. That was really cool." And so that person, as witnessing a kind act, an act of generosity, also received this oxytocin. It was very contagious. And Cynic argues in that example, he's like, I bet that the fellow that saw what I did ended up going out that day to do something nice for somebody else. So that is an important component, an important piece of this circle of safety that he talks about that make organizations effective. Oxytocin makes us social. So we are certainly more capable to achieve more in a group than by ourselves. That's why we need each other at Keller Williams. It's why we need our lenders and our inspectors and our fabulous leadership team to keep us running in our businesses. It also makes us vulnerable to be able to trust. And when we can open up and when sometimes we need to hold back if we're not feeling it with someone in particular. It's a feeling that we belong. So the serotonin and the oxytocin work together to allow us to think and feel and cooperate and trust outside of ourselves. See how nerdy this is? I just can't believe it. I just thought it was great. So the other chemical that he references is cortisol, and it's very important for the fight or flight. It's that rush of adrenaline that if you hear somebody or you think you hear somebody in your house at night, you know, and it gives you the ability to react to what you might perceive as danger. So it elevates. And we have these bursts. And when that happens, it turns off the non-essential functions of our body because all our energy goes to what's happening in the moment. So it shuts down digestion and growth. And Cynic says, you know, I don't need my fingernails to grow if I think there's an intruder. But it also shuts down our immune system. And once the stress goes away, okay, there was no one in the house. It was just the trees. We feel normal, we're okay. But this is the big aha with this one. When cortisol sticks around in your body, it's supposed to come and go, but it erodes our immune system. It erodes our ability to think creatively and cooperatively. It really breaks us down. And so in organizations where there is that break of trust, where you don't feel empowered, you don't feel respected, that nobody hears you, in many small, medium, large organizations, there's a certain level of this. And if it's dominant, the workers are, the staff, the team members don't feel good. And it's no coincidence to him that, there are increases in heart disease, in diabetes, and cancers, partially due to the fact that he uses the example that cortisol, when that stress stays with us, it's a drip, 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 and it weighs not only us down individually, but it weighs us down as an organization. And he really got passionate when he explained this piece, and it basically said, work is killing us, literally. So that was like, wow. He moves on through the book to talk about, integrity. And it's integrity means you're going to be honest when we agree with each other and when we don't agree with each other. And we're in a position to calmly and peacefully share what our opinion is, or our viewpoint, or our data point, even if it's not what you think everybody else in the room is thinking. And it's really important to have integrity when you think you've made a mistake or something isn't going as you had committed it to do, to deal with it. Right? I mean, doesn't that happen every day to us as realtors in some way, shape, or form? That there's never really a straight line from contract signing to close. There's always a little bit of a curve. He talked to a lot of CEOs that are referenced in the book that have, make the general agreement that integrity is the bedrock of the foundation. And it builds the culture within the organization. So to have integrity, the leader of the organization needs to demonstrate that they care about their people, that they're going to do the right thing for their people. Maybe if it doesn't necessarily benefit just them or the leader or the inner circle, it needs to benefit everybody. We need to feel, in Sinek's view, that our leaders really care about us. The successful organizations in any size are those in which the leadership demonstrates that care. Now, although I've never met him personally, I think we could all agree that Gary Keller at Keller Williams does passionately care about the success of us, of agents, of what our industry can do, how it is shifted, how we need to adapt. And he cares about that, or at least I certainly perceive through all of his various presentations that he wants us all to be successful, and there is care, which helps build the culture that we have at Keller Williams, which I think, most of us could argue is different than a lot of other real estate companies. Can't speak to it, haven't been there, but that's important. I'll take a breath. Does anybody else want to chime in and say anything about any of these chemical pieces or integrity or culture? Or we keep going? So, the enriching culture is either formed or not through transparency and the communication of integrity from the leader. All sounds kind of basic, right? Like, yeah, sure, that makes sense, but does it really happen? And I think, again, my takeaway from the book is Sinek he continues to point out examples where the systems and the incentive programs and the cultural norms that have evolved through us as our species has evolved don't line up with the natural biological inclinations that he lays out in these chemical pieces and parts. So how do we keep that in mind, and how can we remedy that as we develop programs and build businesses worth having and lives worth living? You know, pretty obvious to state that he believes that leaders that do put their people first succeed because of the culture of empathy. He understands what it's like. A leader understands what it's like, he or she, to know that there's 22 people on the ground when Johnny Bravo's flying around. That Johnny Bravo knew his people needed him, and he had the empathy to react. So one of the things he refers to in the second half of the book is destructive abundance. And it's something to keep in mind. And as companies grow and organizations grow, the bigger you are, the weaker the relationships are, because you simply cannot have that connection to every single person in your organization. That's one of the reasons why he references that 150-person pod concept of setting up groups so that people do feel engaged and cared for. Conditions of abstraction, you know, when numbers get so big and numbers take precedent over people, organizations can be misled and, you know, get driven on not only the year-over-year statistics, but maybe quarter to quarter, react. And instead of thinking about, how's this going to affect my people? Are we going to be okay? So, kind of wrapping it up here. There is a really nice YouTube video that it's about 45 minutes, and I'm sure you can Google and find it, where Simon Sinek does a general synopsis of some of these important parts of the book, and I welcome you to take a look at that. The book is chock full of historical examples of really the biology and our evolution as a species from Paleolithic times to modern times. A lot of details, a lot of great examples that I think it is a fascinating read, and hope that maybe this summary helps you want to pursue it a little further and at least find some TED Talks or some information on YouTube while you're in the car. Does anybody else have anything they want to share? Circle back to?
I heard, was it Greg and Mike, the Easy Sales team, said they based their team based on servant leadership. So you see the success of their team too. So
Yeah, any size, you know, large, small. Yeah. Great. Anybody else? Thank you. Thanks for tuning in.